Hey everyone, this is Brian Marino with Apex Software, and in this video I'm going to go over getting started using ApexSketch version X on a mobile device. So what you're looking at here is AVX running on an iPad Pro, and I'll be sketching using touch. So I don't have a mouse or a keyboard. Everything I'm going to do and show will be done using touch. Before I get started, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I will be monitoring that. Also, if you know anyone who would be interested in this or you think this would help them, feel free to like, share, and or subscribe. If you look in the description of this video, you'll find links to different parts of the video, so you can skip through to see how to draw a curve or an angle. You don't necessarily have to watch the whole video. Look at the description. There'll be hyperlinks you can tap on. It'll skip to that specific part of the video and show you how to do it. So to get started, I'm going to kind of go over all the different panels in the program, describe what they do, how they work, and then I'll get on to drawing. Right now we're on the Home tab, typical Home tab, just like everything here also is laid out like version 7 and 6. So if any of you have used Apex 6 or 7 in the past, all of this should be pretty familiar to you, and everything should kind of be in a similar location as it is in version 6 or 7. Under the Home tab, we have our typical cut, copy, paste, delete. This is also where you'll find undo, redo, which I use quite often. So that's the tab you'll find the main functions of editing or adjusting the full sketch. To the right of that, we have the View tab. This is where you will come to add or remove pages. You can come here to view your calcs as well as adjust a few different settings for viewing and grid on, off, and things like that. To the right of that, we have the Tools tab. This is where you can come to change your settings as well as change a few settings on the fly like line snap and angle snap. I'd recommend leaving those where they are, but if you want to kind of play with them and see what they do, you can come here and take a look. Photometrics I'm not going to get into, but basically that allows you to import an image, set your scale, and trace it just like you can in Apex 6 and 7. So AVX does have photometrics. You may not see this tab at the moment. It still is in development, but that will be available at some point. To the right of that, we have the Help tab. Under Help, email support. So if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to go to Help, click on email support, send us your question or your suggestion, or if there's a feature you're missing or would like to see, that's the perfect spot to send it from. So tap email support, your email browser will pop up, or your email client. Go ahead and type the email, send it. Video library, you should find this video as well as any videos I put out in the future will be found in the video library link. To the right of that, the About button, that lets you know which version of Apex you're using or are on, so you can check that to make sure you're up to date with what you have. I'm going to go ahead and move back to the Home tab. Now I'm going to move down to the Drawing toolbar. The Drawing toolbar will be the main toolbar you're going to use. That's where we have our Edit, Draw, Freeform, Define, Text, and Calcs. Edit, just like in any other version of Apex, you're going to be in edit mode if you want to move or delete or edit anything in the sketch. Right below that is the Draw button. This is the button or the tool we will be in when we are drawing areas that we want to get calculations of. To the right of that is Freeform. Freeform will be used for interior walls. If you wanted to just kind of draw a line pointing at something, or say there was a road and you wanted to draw that road, this is where you would come to do that. So these lines are just for visual purposes only. They're not calculated in any way. Right below that is the Define icon. This is where we're going to come to identify the areas once we draw them. I'll go into more detail on this when I get to the Define part. Below that is Text. This is our text library, pretty self-explanatory. Select a label, it'll show up in the middle of the screen. Drag your finger, drop it where you want it. Symbols is below that. That is currently in development. We'll have that out as soon as possible. And then finally, Calcs. The Calcs will bring up a calculation panel. Right now it's blank, but once we get our sketch drawn, whatever we draw and define will show up in this panel. Moving down to the bottom left, we have the blue square with the dot in the middle. That is center. So if you want to just center your sketch, you can easily tap or click the center button. To the right of that, the green X with the arrows on them, that is center and fit. So what that'll do is blow the sketch up as big as it can be or shrink it down as small as it needs to be to fit on the page as big as possible. To the right of that is grid on off. So if we tap it one time, it'll turn the grid off. If we tap it again, it'll turn the grid back on. So if you prefer not to have a grid, that's where you can go turn it off. And then to the right, we have filter options. This is where we can filter out what we see. Like let's say we wanted to hide all our text or all our dimensions. This is where you can come do that. Finally, the bottom right, we have page 1 of 1 and a couple of page indicators. This is where we can navigate between pages. We can see how many pages are in the sketch. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and go into draw mode. So I'm going to tap on draw. And this is probably one of the main tools you're going to use. So when you first launch a program, this is probably what you're going to want to start off doing, is start off sketching. You'll notice we have a crosshair there, a gray circle with a crosshair on it. That's our drawing cursor. So if I just tap and drag my finger across the screen, the cursor will move. I don't need to put my finger directly over that crosshair. Right now I'm just dragging at the bottom of the screen and it's following me. As long as I drag my finger somewhere in the drawing port is where you see the grid right now. Anywhere I drag, that cursor is going to move. So I can just use my finger, drag it where I want. I can also use the arrow keys on the keyboard or the keypad to move it. So I'm tapping the left arrow, right arrow. It's moving the cursor 1 foot at a time each time I tap it. So I can use that to move it as well. I prefer when I get started though just to use my finger and kind of get it close to where I want to start. And then once I'm ready to start drawing, I'm going to tap enter on the touchpad and the cursor is going to turn green. You'll see red in there as well because there's a bullseye behind it. That's actually our point of beginning. So when I draw my first line, you'll see it leaves a bullseye behind where we started. To enter in a distance of a wall, just like with any other version of Apex, I'm going to tap the distance using the touchpad. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 20, and you'll notice 20 shows up in the touchpad on the right side there. I'm going to go ahead and tap the right arrow on my keyboard, and you'll notice it drew a 20-foot wall to the right. It shows me the dimension and the line is in red. So if the line is in red like this, that means it's not placed on the page yet. It's still editable. So while it's still editable, let's say you had 2 or 3 dimensions. You had a 20, a 8, and a 5 to get your wall. Well, you don't have to do that math in your head. The program will do it for you. So if I had an 8-foot now going to the right, I can tap 8. Tap the right arrow, and then I had a 5, so I'm going to do 5, right arrow. So the program will do the math for you. You don't have to, add up each distance. Just enter each one and hit the direction, and then it'll add them all up, and then when you're done, hit enter, and it'll place that wall with all the dimensions added up. In this case, I actually want the wall to be 20, so I'm just going to type in 20 and tap enter. And that'll actually adjust the line to 20 feet without having to figure out anything else. If you type in a number and hit enter while the line is not placed, it'll actually change the line to the number you type in. So from this point, I'm happy with that wall. I want to go ahead and place that in the sketch and move on to my next. So I'm going to go ahead and tap enter, and you'll notice the line turns black. The dimension kind of gets a little bit bigger. That lets me know I'm ready to move on. That line is now anchored on the page. So the next wall, I'm going to go 10 down, enter. We'll go 4 left, enter, 7 down, enter, 10 right, enter, and I'm going to go ahead and enter a few more dimensions here, and that becomes 35 down, enter. Alright, so you notice when I drew off screen, it actually followed me off screen. So this is a good time to show you how the center and fit works. If I tap the center and fit button at the bottom left, it'll actually shrink the sketch down and it will bring it all back into view for me. So that's a quick and easy way to bring everything back into view once you kind of get the footprint started. So my next wall is going to go 20 feet left, enter. I'm going to go 8 up, enter. 6 left, enter. 6 down, enter. And then I'm going to come 1 to the right and tap enter. So from this point, let's say we have a bay window. We need to add an angled wall here. It's a bay window, and we measured it using Rise and Run. I'm going to go ahead and tap on edit, and I'm going to kind of pinch and zoom and then go back into draw mode and tap enter so that I can bring that point directly in front of us and make it a little bit easier to see. So let's say we measured a Rise and Run, and this angled bay window wall, it goes 2 feet down. So I'm going to tap 2 and I'm going to tap the down arrow, but I'm not going to press enter. I'm going to go ahead and hit my next measurement, which is 2 left. And we'll notice 45 It's showing us the angle 45 degrees. It's showing us 2.8 for the line length, and it's showing us our rise and run as well. So we can kind of use all of those measurements to confirm what we have drawn. Once we're happy with it, I'll go ahead and tap enter, and it'll permanently place it on the sketch page. And then I'm going to go 6 left, enter. And for my second side of my bay window, rather than going 2 up and 2 left, we actually have a shortcut for that. If you look on the right side of the number pad, there's a couple of different letters there. We have a L, a R, a B, and an A. The B is for bay window. So if I just tap B on my keyboard, it'll actually mirror the first angle and make them both match. So I didn't even have to do anything there other than hit the B button, and it mirrored that first angle for me and made it a lot easier to sketch. All right, moving on, we're going to go 1 foot left, and then I'm going to come 15 feet straight up, tap enter. And now I want to bring everything back into view again. So I'm going to go ahead and tap the center and fit button again, and it will zoom back out on everything. So I showed you how to draw an angle using rise and run for a bay window. You also might run across larger wing-like angles. So let's say for this example, we have a 20-foot wall going to the left, and we had a miter gauge, and we were able to determine it's 53 degrees. So the way we can sketch that is what we call turn. So we're going to enter the distance of the wall, the direction, is it left or right, and then what is the degree of that wall. So on my touchpad, we know the wall's 20 feet, so first distance, 20. Then what direction, left or right? This one goes to the left. So I'm going to use the L key on the right side of my touchpad, L. And you'll notice in the HUD, right above the delete button, it says 20L. All right, so we want 53 degrees next. So I'm going to type in 53 for 53 degrees. And then when I tap enter, it'll draw that line. So we see on screen, it's showing us it's 53 degrees. It's actually figured the rise and run out for us as well. So once we kind of confirm those measurements, I'll go ahead and tap enter, and it'll place that wall. Our next wall is coming 15 feet off of this at 90 degrees. So the way I'm going to draw that, I'm going to use turn again. I'm going to type in 15 for the distance. This time I'm going to type R because it's going to the right. And since it's 90 degrees, I don't need to type in 90. It defaults to 90 automatically, so I'm just going to hit enter. And there's the 15-foot wall going 90 degrees off of that angle, and we can confirm the rise and run as well as some other dimensions it gives us. So once we're happy with that, we'll go ahead and tap enter, and it'll place it in the sketch. Okay, now you'll notice there's 4 numbers showing here. We have the 8.9. That's how far it is to the right to square it up. There's a 14. The 14 is how far straight up to square it up with where we started. And then the 16.6 is how far from where we're at to where we started. So in this case, we want to draw that 8.9 foot line first, then we want to do the 14 up. So I'm going to actually tap the 8.9 foot dimension, and it's going to draw that line for me. Then I'm going to tap the 14 foot label, and it's going to draw that for me and close the shape. So now I'm ready to move on to any attached areas that I have. Now you're not going to always draw back to the point of beginning, and a good example of that is I'm going to go ahead and using my finger, I'm going to drag my cursor and put it over to this corner. A tip to moving your cursor, again, you don't have to place your finger directly over it. You can drag anywhere on the screen, it'll follow you. If you want to snap to a specific corner, just drag it, get it close, and it'll kind of snap on its own. If you have trouble making it snap, you can get it close, and you can tap the bullseye in the center of the arrows, and it'll actually jump it to the closest corner as well. So if you prefer to use a button to jump, just get it close, tap the bullseye, it'll jump it to the closest corner. So I'm going to go ahead and add a patty on here. So I'm going to tap enter, and let's say it goes 6 feet to the right, and then it has a curved corner. So we've measured the curved corner actually starts right where our green cursor is, and it ends 10 feet down and then 10 feet right. So our curve ends where the green cursor is now. All right, I have my chord set. Now I need to curve the wall. So if you look up top under the Draw Tools tab at the top, there is a curve left and a curve right button. In this case, I want to do the curve right. So I'm going to tap on curve right, and it's going to curve it to 90 degrees, which is what we want. Now let's say we measured it and it actually, the arc height was 5 feet, not 2.9. We can tap on the arc height icon here, I can tap 5, tap enter, and it'll actually change my arc height for me. So you can tap on any of the numbers that show up in the on screen and actually adjust them with the touchpad. In this case, I'm going to leave it at the 2.9 arc height, 90-degree curve, and I'm going to tap enter. So that line is placed, and now I'm ready to move on. So now we just need to draw a line straight down to the corner where the 35 and the 10-foot wall meet. If you notice, there's already a red dot on it. If I tap on that red dot, it'll actually draw that line for me and take me back to that point. In this case, we don't need to trace back to where we started, so I'm just going to tap enter a second time. My cursor will turn gray, and I'm ready to start drawing my next area. So the next area I want to sketch is actually down here. So I'm going to drag my cursor down to the corner, tap the bullseye icon, tap enter, and I'm going to go 20 feet right, enter, go 24 up, enter, and then I'll just tap the 20 witness line, and it'll draw that line for me. And then I'll tap enter a second time to pick up my cursor. So that's our garage. Now let's say this also had a second floor. We're going to go ahead and draw the second floor right on top of the first, which is going to save us a lot of time because we're not going to have to trace over common walls. So I'll using my finger, I'm going to drag the cursor to near this corner, tap the J key, jump to that point. So from here, I'll tap enter, and let's say we measured the second floor, and there's a big open area. The second floor only covers like half of the first, but it goes completely over the garage. So what I'm going to do, we'll go 12 feet down, enter, 6 left, enter. I'm just going to tap and hold the down arrow, which is an alignment tool, and what that does is snaps you into different points of the sketch. So it's the same as control direction arrow on the keyboard. So if anyone's looking to align a specific point in the sketch, tap and hold your direction arrow. You want the cursor to go, it'll start snapping to different points in the sketch. Okay, and then finally we need to draw a line to where the 15-foot and the 20-foot angled wall meet. So I'm just going to tap the red dot there, and it'll draw that line for me. At this point, I'm done. I don't need to trace anything else, so I'm just going to tap enter a second time. Cursor will turn gray, and I can move it out of the way. So we have everything drawn here. We have our first floor, second floor, garage, and patio all drawn. Okay, so now we're ready to start identifying what these areas are. So to do that, I'm going to tap on the define area icon here, and I'm going to start defining. So a couple of tips on defining areas. In Apex 6 and 7, when you selected an area, it posted the auto post label right in the middle of where that area was. With AVX, it actually will post the label in the first place you select the area at. So for example, this first floor is going to be this part. So I intentionally selected this area first because I want my label to show where that square footage is showing now. So I selected that point first, and then I'll tap over here because that's also part of my first floor. Okay, so now with everything selected that is my first floor, I'm going to click the GLA, come down to GLA 1 and tap the apply button at the bottom of the panel. So now our first floor is defined and calculated. Our second floor is going to be right here, but also covers the garage. So I'm going to go ahead and select everything that is our second floor, select GLA 2, and tap apply. Now our second floor is defined. For our garage, I'll go ahead and tap the garage, select garage in my list, and apply that. And then finally, tap here, we'll call that a patio, apply. So now we have all of our areas drawn and defined. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to just tap inside the second floor, and I'm going to just drag it off to the side with my finger and drop it right there, and then center and fit. There's our second floor. We only drew 4 lines to get that. Otherwise, we followed the footprint of the first floor to get everything drawn. So you may notice a few things here. You know, why are there 2 20-foot dimension labels on that bottom wall? Well, we can easily select the point separating the 2 walls, delete it, and it'll give us 1 dimension label. Let's say also, you know what, I wanted my dimension labels on the outside. You can always select the area, go to view at the top, and then under the apply button, tap cycle dimensions, and cycle them all to the outside of the area. Let's say we noticed, you know what, we also made another mistake. That bay window should not have been on the second floor. It should have only been on the first. So we actually need to take that bay window out. I'm going to kind of pinch and zoom. So the quick way to get rid of the bay window, just tap an endpoint, delete. Tap the other endpoint, delete. And then we want to get rid of those two ones also and just get us a 12-foot label. So I'm going to tap that one and delete it. And then I'll tap this one and delete it as well. And then I'll center and fit back out. So we could quickly remove that bay window without having to delete anything other than the endpoints. And you'll notice the square footage update and it recalculated on the fly. Let's say we also noticed, you know what? It only went halfway over the garage. So the top wall should actually be 10 feet and the bottom wall should be 30 feet. So we need to move that 24-foot wall, this wall here. We need to move that wall 10 feet to the left and shorten the other two walls by 10 feet. So what I'm going to do, I already selected the 24-foot wall. So now I'm going to type 10 on the keyboard and I'm going to tap the left arrow. Okay, and you'll see a preview there. The line moved 10 feet to the left. It hasn't applied it yet. Until I hit enter, it's going to keep it editable. So once we've determined, yep, that's where we want to move it, whenever I tap enter, it'll actually update it and also update the square footage. And then I'll just center and fit back. Okay, so we quickly adjusted that wall without having to delete anything. We just selected the wall, selected a specific distance, and moved it that distance. So that's how you can edit areas without having to reopen them. AVX is also multi-touch, so like if I select the word first floor here on the in the first floor, I can also tap and select the square footage, and then I can move them both at the same time to say the middle of the area if that's what I wanted to do. Same thing with the second floor. I can tap on each of the labels, drag them up, tap and drop them back where I want them. That's how you would edit areas, adjust or move labels. You can also tap on any label. I'm actually going to tap these 4 or 5 dimension labels and select them all at once, and then just tap delete. So you can select multiple items at one time and delete them as well. So that's a little bit of editing. Now the next thing I want to show is, okay, on our second floor we actually have an open area that we need to subtract out of the second floor. How do we do that? So step 1, I'm going to go ahead and tap back on draw, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a we'll go 12 feet by 6 feet rectangle. So let's say that rectangle we need to subtract out of the second floor. So first we're going to draw it. Once the area is drawn, we'll come to define and we will select the open area. And while that area is selected, I'm going to go ahead and call it other storage. And then if you look right below the apply button on the right side, there's a subtract from option down there. So I'm going to tap the drop down and I'm going to select second floor is what I want to subtract from. And you'll notice it shows up now, subtract from second floor, and actually shows you the square footage. So when I apply that, it'll define the open area and it'll update the square footage of the second floor to 1168. So that's how you subtract one area from another. Make sure you have the larger area drawn, and then when you draw the smaller area, tell it what to subtract from at the bottom of the defined area panel. Another thing you might notice, it's called storage right now. What if I want to change that to open or stairs? So the way you can do that, select the storage label that auto posted, and then if you come up top here, I can delete this back, call it stairs, hit enter, and now our label has changed to stairs. Now that also updated the calculation panel. So if I go to the calculation panel, you'll notice now it shows stairs under other as the area name. So while we're here, let me go over the calculation panel and kind of what we have in there. So a list of all the areas drawn are here. While I have the panel up, I can actually center and fit, and it'll center and fit my sketch into that view there on the left. So if you're kind of zoomed in on something and you want to bring everything into view, just center and fit and it'll bring it all in. I can tap on a sketch or an area in the sketch and it'll actually highlight it on the right and let me know what area it is that I'm selecting. I can also come over here on the right and select an area and it'll highlight it on the left in the panel. The most important thing I think is I can come to like GLA2, drop down the area, and I can see a breakdown of what's drawn, and I can see subtracted areas, 72 square feet. And if I drop that down, it shows me stairs is what is being subtracted. So you can come in here and view what you have drawn, check out what's being subtracted from what, if anything, and just see the calculations of everything you have drawn. So that's kind of the basics of the calculation panel. So now that we have all of that done, let's say now we're ready to add a couple of text labels and maybe some interior walls to the sketch. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on the text icon next, and that will bring up a list of some predefined text labels. If I want to drop a label in the sketch, just simply tap the label you want to add. So I'm going to tap kitchen. It'll put it right in the middle of the screen, and then I'm just going to tap and drag with my finger and put it where I want it, and then tap anywhere in the grid area, and it'll actually place it in the sketch where you have it placed. Remember, you don't have to put your finger directly over the label. So I'm going to pick dining room, and I'm just dragging from the very bottom of the screen, and the label's following where I'm going. So you can kind of put it where you want it, tap, drop it where you want it. If there's a label that's not in the list and you want to add it to it, or you want to enter it and add it to your sketch, tap on the enter custom text icon, and then I'll just type in test. All right, once you type in the word you want, go ahead and tap enter on the keyboard. The keyboard will disappear. It'll put the label right in the middle of the sketch, and then you can go and kind of drop it where you want and tap and place. So that's how you would enter a text label. If you wanted to move or delete any of these, go back to edit, top of the left toolbar, tap on the label you want to move, and then move it where you want. This will be improved, but at the moment, if you want to move anything after you place it, go back to edit, select it, move it. You can also select it and change it up top here, just like we did the room label. So if you select a text label, you want to change it, or maybe there were 2 dining rooms and we want to put a 2 after this. Go ahead and put in a 2, tap enter, and we updated it to dining room 2. So you can quickly on the fly edit text labels by selecting them and coming up top. You can also resize them up here. So A+, A-, resizes. You can do bold, italic, underlined. You can change different fonts. So if you had a different font you wanted to use, you could pick it here as well. So that's how you quickly change dimension or text labels on the fly. Fonts and sizes and things like that. Finally, I'll quickly go over drawing interior walls. So we have freeform here. It works just like drawing exterior lines does. Actually, let me zoom in on this and go back to freeform, and I'll just place my cursor here. So let's say we had an interior wall that cut that off into a room. I'm just tapping and holding the up arrow until I'm aligned. Tap enter a second time, the cursor will turn gray, and now we can move on. So maybe there was a closet here. We can go 6 feet down, and then tap and hold, tap enter, and we have an area drawn, and then I can center and fit back out. So if you do need to draw any interior walls, this is how you would do it. Go to freeform. You'll notice freeform don't have dimension labels on them, and they're a little bit thinner lines. So that's kind of the way you can determine whether it's an interior wall or a freeform wall versus an area wall that's being used for calculations. I'm going to go back to edit mode, and I'm going to go over a few editing functions we have in here. So to get started, we will select the second floor, and I'm going to do copy, and I'm going to do paste, and then I'm just going to drag it down. All right, so that quickly copied and pasted a second floor for us. It also copied in the stairs, as you can see. Since that was subtracted, it did take on those properties. You can also clone areas. Let me go ahead and select the stairs and delete it. So and sometimes with those smaller areas, it's easier to just delete the auto post labels and then select the area and delete it. So let's go ahead and get rid of this stuff. Okay, so let's say, we had a third floor that was exactly the same as the second floor. We can select the second floor, come up top to clone area, pick our third floor as our area type and apply it, and then I can just drag it down. So now we have a third floor. So we just quickly cloned that area and made it a third floor. Okay, so I think that's going to wrap up the basics of getting started. I will be putting out more videos with more details. I just wanted to put one out that basically gives you the basics of how to get started, how the new user interface operates, and basically filled any questions that come in on this. I will be putting out another video in the near future with some other features that I didn't go over today. As mentioned, just wanted to go over the stuff that I thought was important to get started. If you have any questions, again, feel free to drop them in the comments section below. Please like, share, subscribe. Otherwise, I will catch you on the next one.